Hey, what is up, everybody? Good to see everyone. Well, all like 12 of us. Welcome to Game Night, where Derek, the worst video game player of all time, continues his epic quest to, try to play a video game. There we go. So, the last time we were playing this, we had just beaten Astos, and we had recovered the crystal orb, and then we returned it to Moitoya, who gave us the herb, the sleeping tonic, the jolt tonic, which woke up the elf, which gave us the mystic key, which gave us access to the TNT, which we gave to the dwarves, who blew up an opening, and now we can leave and head to wherever we're going. There we go. And here we are at Elftown. Now, let's just do a quick little status check here. Everyone is level 17. Smith, our warrior, is rocking almost 300 hit points. Our monk Bob is rocking 207, which is really low. Hamblade, aka Amblade, but Hamblade is still much more impressive, 271. Let me move my KLC icon here. Go. It's always nice to see. And Hoyrit, our black mage, of course, has pathetically low hit points. But we have a lot of spell slots, and quite frankly, we do not even remotely have enough magic to fill all the slots. You can see that we have level 5 slots, and we have level 6 slots, and we don't have any spells for those levels yet. So we are a little bit behind the curve there. As far as equipment, Smith is rocking the Worm Quiller sword, which is good against dragons. Still has a freaking leather shield. Just crap equipment all over the place. Bob is rocking nothing, as monks tend to do. Now you can see that Smith, the warrior, has a 35 defense, whereas Bob has only 11. Defense is basically damage absorption in this game. So this is why when Smith gets hit, he tends to get hit for very little damage. In fact, sometimes he gets hit for the minimum amount of damage, which is 1. But Bob's evasion is much higher, and in theory, that should go up as the game continues to go on. In theory. No, the monks are kind of glass cannons, basically. By the end of the game, they can just do a tremendous amount of damage. Now, how much money do we have? So we have 20,000 gil, which is a lot of money, for sure. I think we got all the spells that we really wanted to get. Yeah, because some of these spells just don't really do too much. Not really worth it. I mean, we'll get them eventually, but is there anything that we're, like, completely screwed on? Hamblade only has 1 level 2 spell. We should probably go get a level 2 spell. That's back at Provoca, the second town that you go to. And he's doing a little bit better. Okay. Where are we at? Now, as a reminder, this game does feature things like Phoenix Downs and the like, and Ethers, but we aren't going to be using those because I don't believe in them. Now, because we are completionists, when you get the Mystic Key, you are able to sorry, I was getting distracted. When you get the Mystic Key, you're able to open up locks that are locked with the Mystic Key. And unfortunately, or fortunately, there are some mystic doors that are locked, and I don't remember if we went and got I don't remember if we went and got the ones from the Northwest Castle, but there's definitely mystic keys that are locked in the bottom of the Marsh Cave. So we're actually going to go back to the dungeon, which we already beat, and go all the way down to the bottom of the dungeon just to open up some locked doors. Now, I don't really recall what you get down there. It's probably not worth it, you know, but we'll do it anyway. It's just because, why not, right? And of course, you know, if anybody wants to ask me any questions, you know, we're mostly just here to shoot the shit. We're not really actually here to play Final Fantasy. I mean, we are playing Final Fantasy, but you know what I mean. So I'm happy to talk RPGs and whatever else we got going on. Obviously, this is my secondary channel, so I don't really expect to get a ton of people there. Look at that, Black Mage. And because we are in, because we're in kind of like redo perspective, I might use the auto battle here at some parts just to make it go a little faster. Okay, now that's where we were. That's where we fought Astos. So let's see. Okay, we did get all these. Okay. So we're gonna go back to the Marsh Cave, which of course before, remember, was, you know, scarily difficult. You know. Yeah. So. What was I saying? Because, you know, we almost ran out of antidotes, and we barely had enough potions to get through it, but we did manage to get down to it. But now it'll be a much easier. We're much higher level. We have plenty of antidotes. It'll be a much easier perspective, or much easier thing. So this is this should be a lot easier. Let's see here. Sandy, or Sandim, says, been running Draw Steel lately. Have you been running it in person, or are you running it on Codex? So again, just to be clear, we've been here before. We are just, you know, kind of running this back because we want to get down to the bottom level. And why is this not giving me auto battle options? Oh, whatever. Oh, you're running it in Foundry. Interesting. The problem is, at this time, I'm really reaching a point where I'm starting not to trust Foundry, because, you know, there's updates and there's changes, and before you know it, like, depending on the length of your campaign, suddenly you're, like, out of date, and I'm just, like, you know, again, I'm just, you know, once bitten, twice shy. I've just been so screwed over by this stuff. Where's my auto battle option? Q, start, stop, auto battle. Okay. There we go. It's Q. So when you hit Q, basically, it just kind of fast forwards through the fight and just automatically spams attack, which, to be clear, most of the time here is what we're doing. Oh, Math Guy, you ran out on Foundry as well. That's very interesting. I haven't really checked it out yet. And, yeah, it's definitely the case where if you are running on basically, which a lot of, you know, a lot of these systems are, right? They aren't officially supported by any of the companies that make them. And I actually think it's kind of unfortunate. I've had really great experience with stuff from Free League because, of course, most of the Free League games systems have an officially supported module. And that means that they are able to, you know, keep it up to date. If there's updates, you know, people are spending money for it. It looks really nice. Actually, now that I mention it, one of the things that is unfortunate, about the One Ring, you know, which I love, is because of all of the crazy licensing and all the other nonsense that goes into games through Middle-earth. This is like the one game that Free League doesn't have a an official module for, and that's, you know, for me that's a little disappointing because I think Free League makes excellent premium modules, and I'm more than happy to pay the money. You know, because it's not that much money, and you get, not only do you get all of the stuff, because, you know, the Free League stuff isn't available on the SRD. So, to the best of mine, I don't think there's any Free League games that are SRD, you know, or Creative Commons or whatever, what have you. And so, for me, it's really nice because even when there is a fan-made system, and even when that fan-made system is really, really good, it's still kind of annoying because a lot of times the content from the game, like they'll build the framework. You know what I'm talking about. You guys obviously play Foundry, so ooh. Oh, okay. Well, that's new. Actually, we don't really need anything from this person, do we? No, not really. So I guess we'll just attack. All right. Ooh! 54 on our Black Mage. Alright, alright. Alright, hit him with the Ice 4. Legally distinct Mind Flayers, Dr. Waits. Let's get it right. Oh, there we go. 6 hits, 199. Big damage! You know, I wish that was the role of the monk. It's so funny, like, you know, I don't know if you guys remember 3rd edition, but 3rd edition monks, high level, they usually made like 6 or 7 or 8 or something attacks, and they had just a crazy amount of damage. I think their damage was D20 at the end of the game. I could be wrong, but it was really high. Oh no, anacondas. All right. No, it's kind of crazy that we got ambushed there. Man. Yeah, see, like... Okay, so here's the thing about what Dr. Waits just said. There's a problem. Okay, so Dr. Waits, by the way, said, I like monks to grapple and stop spellcasters. The problem is, like... Ooh, silver armlet, nice. I hate that. Not like, look at the upgrade we just got on that, by the way. The copper amulet takes us from defense 4 to defense 15, which is hot fire. So it's not even like that I hate the idea of grappling. I just hate the idea of grappling. Like, and it's not even necessarily grappling per se. I just don't. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I guess I just don't like, for example, in Pathfinder 2, like early on, now this isn't like 100% the case, but like early on, it kind of became very apparent that one of the best ways to build a champion, like AKA a paladin in the game, was to basically use a shield and grapple people and leave your other hand not equipped to anything so you could grapple people. And I hated that, like, so much. So it's just one of those things where it's like, I get that it's effective, but I just like hate that. Why did you use fire on auto battle, you son of a bitch? I just hate that's like the best tactic. Francois, the purpose of the monk in this game is an extremely high damage dealing character. I think these are the ones that are immune to physical attacks. So, well, that's convenient that we went fire first. So you'll see that when the way that damage works in this game is, man, coming out of sun full forge. The way that magic works in this game is, or I should say, the way the damage expressions work in this game is that you have an accuracy and you also have a damage, and the higher your accuracy, the more attacks or hits, basically the more attacks you make, And then that is multiplied by your damage expression. So what you'll see from our monk, Bob, there in the second position, is when he attacks, he will tend to do like 6 or 7 attacks. 6 hits. You see, he got 6 hits. Whereas my fighter only got 3 hits. So as the game continues on and on and on and on and on, you'll see that the monk is just going to do more and more damage. But because this doesn't wear the heavy armor in this game, and armor increases the absorb, or how much you absorb from your damage. When he does get hit, he tends to get hit for a lot more than the fighter. Crazy. We open that up and we got an antidote. Great. We did get kind of punched in the face there pretty hard. I guess we'll use a heal. What's up, Erica? What's up, Pumpkin? Yeah, we're just going back to the bottom level of the dungeon so that we can clear out the locked chests that we didn't have before. So I don't remember if you could grapple with your feet in 3rd edition. I remember you could make unarmed attacks with your feet. So, you know, a monk could still, you know, kick or whatever. Is there just nothing in this room? I guess I got fooled. Uh-oh, we got somebody poisoned. You got me. Yeah, so like, you know, prone locking, grappling, like all that stuff, I don't know. I just dislike it. I know this sounds terrible, but like I really don't like those elements of the game. And you might say like, so what do you like, Derek? Just, you know, punching and doing damage? Sort of. I don't know. I don't mind, and this is like, I didn't mind 4th edition, because like in 4th edition, I liked that you could, you know, or that you would use your encounter power or whatever, and it would, you know, put somebody on their butt if you hit with them or something like that. I liked that. But I don't specifically like where you're just like not doing anything, you're just like grappling somebody, and like, you know, the phrase prone locking, I don't know. It's very gamist in a game that isn't trying to be gamist. I don't know. It's like, I don't play these games, but I hear people all the time talking about, like, Elden Ring, and they'll talk about, like, cheesing a boss to beat it. And, like, not that that's... You're not cheating. You know, it's not like you're literally cheating. But you're, like, taking... You know, it's like, oh, if you stand over here and you just keep using this ability and fly back, and then you use a different ability, use this other ability, and you just keep rotating between the two of them, you know, you basically can just beat the boss and stuff like that. It's like, some people, I would never do that. That's just not something I'm here to do, I guess is what it comes down to. Oh no, Smith got paralyzed. So, yeah, I mean, they call it cheesing, and it, you know, it feels cheesy, and to that point, for sure. Yeah, it just feels cheap. I don't know. And I know, like, you know, monks, you know, I mean, grappling is not, it's not like it's some illegal part of the game. You know, it's a standard part of the game, but it just feels. I've used this example before. But the very first, you know, game that we played from Pathfinder 2 was, of course, the one with the blood ooze. You know, the one everyone played. What was it called? I don't remember the name of the adventure now. And at the end of the adventure, you fight this alchemist, this elf. Fall of Plaguestone. Thank you. And at the end of Fall of Plaguestone, spoiler alert. Oops, somebody's poisoned. At the end of Fall of Plaguestone, you fight this elven alchemist who's, you know, sworn revenge or whatever. on the town, and my party of PCs, Smith was, I think he was a dwarf, and he was like a dwarf fighter or something. And he had a sword and he had a shield, or an axe and a shield or something like that, right? And there was a cleric, and we had some sort of, I think we had like an occult sorcerer. No, I was like, yeah, they were definitely an occult sorcerer, because I remember they used all sorts of horrible psionic tentacle stuff. And I'm like, no, maybe they were a bard. And that's, which is a whole separate problem. But anyways, the final fight of this adventure consisted of the heroic band of party, the heroic band of adventurers. I'm so lost here. The heroic band of adventurers going, and Smith literally, did we were playing like the third session or something like that, or fourth session of PF2. And Smith had already pretty much, he'd already figured out the game. And he, looked at the elf and probably calculated, okay, she probably doesn't have a great athletics check, and it looks like she's doing a lot of manipulate actions because she's an alchemist. So Smith, again, the final fight of this adventure, he runs in and he strides, free action, throws his weapon to the ground, okay, and proceeds to grapple the alchemist. And he may have critically hit or whatever like that, but she was pinned or whatever. And then at some point, someone came in and knocked her prone, because I don't remember. Does grappling make you flat-footed? I don't think people had figured out yet that those didn't stack like they do, like in normal Team PF games. Anyways, point was, she was grappled and pinned on the ground, and the fact that the fighter threw his weapon away, but he's like, but I'll keep my shield, in case I need to raise it or whatever like that. So now you have this, I'm just imagining this dwarf, this big burly dwarf warrior who's just like sitting on top of, an elven, person. And so, yeah, there's an advantage, right? If you knock them prone, then they have to, take 2 actions to stand back up and all that other stuff. And of course, with a fighter with attack of opportunity, yeah. Anyways, so you've got this prone elf sitting there, being grappled by the dwarf, pinned, I'm just I'm visualizing it, right? I'm really big into the visualization element of it. So it's like, she's just being held down in the book and held down on the ground. And then the rest of the party is like, I remember the cleric had like a hammer, and he was describing him basically kind of golf swinging, because she's on the ground. She's pinned prone on the ground. And he's basically describing him just beating her over the head with a hammer. It was like so horrible. There was nothing remotely epic about it. And then just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, the bard lets loose with a, classic bardic magic that made her start, vomiting in pain. I don't quite remember what occult spell this was. It must be, a level 1 or level 2 occult spell. It's been a while since I played Pathfinder 2, so I don't remember the name of the spell. So now she was sickened or something, or frightened. And not me, but the party almost started feeling bad for this, for the villain of this adventure, because they were just like, oh man, this is brutally effective. But it's brutal, right? It's both brutally effective and brutal. And I'm not saying that, we were, by any stretch of the imagination, experts at PF2. But it definitely felt like, they handled that adventure as good as one can. And we're like, if the optimal thing to do is for the fighter to throw away his weapon and then basically hog tie an elven woman, and then for the rest of the group to sit around and just beat her merciless, while a bard, psychically assaults her so that she's vomiting in pain. I don't know if this is I don't know if this is the game that we want to play. And this was like the first, Pathfinder 2 had just come out. Like, it came out at Gen Con 2019, and this was like September 2019. So, yeah. Anyways, I don't remember how we got off on this topic. Oh, the point was yes, that is effective. They prone locked her and they stun locked her and they used all these abilities to blah, 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 blah. And it was like, yeah, but it was horrible, Yeah, I don't recall the bear. But I remember my group didn't really seem to have too much of a problem with that. I know a lot of people were like, it's a TPK monster. But my group didn't seem to have any problems with it. Although my group did go and rest at halfway through the dungeon, the final dungeon, which technically meant that Plague Stone got destroyed. And they were fine with it. They said, fuck those people. They suck anyways. So they beat the villain after the villain had already blown up the town. And the only reason they did it was because they said, what else are we going to do? So, Cinnabus says, Session 1 of Fabula Ultima down in the books. I used a ritual and I am over the moon. Fantastic. What ritual did you, let me rephrase it another way. What skill ritual did you use? Like elementalism, entropism, symbolism. What's the default one? Is it just called ritualism? I don't remember. My Fabula Ultima book is not there. I don't know where my Fabula Ultima book is. Ritualism. Yeah, okay. The generic one. Gotta be careful. Don't, remember that there are other rituals. Like, ritualism can't do everything. I think that's important for people to remember. I'm not saying that you did that. I'm just saying. All right. Well, we've gotten everything that we came to get. So now it is time to leave the city behind, and or leave the sea behind and proceed to new realms. Now, of course, remember the premise of this game is that the Earth is beginning to collapse into sadness and despair because the elemental powers have all been out of whack. And that is what we are here to do. We are here to restore the balance of nature. And there are 4 crystals, each one for one of the elements, and they are being corrupted or they are being drained of their power somehow. And so this is what we are here to find out. So because we talked to the dwarves and we uncovered the mystical nitro powder, TNT basically, the dwarves were able to remove the landslide and free us. And so now we can sail our ship out into the wider ocean. Phantom Pain, Obvious, thank you so much. Obvious, by the way, was the bard in that epic adventure. And there we go. Now we are into the world. Now I don't remember how to. This button? Okay, I can make it a little bit bigger. So if you can see this kind of continent here to the west. On our mini map, well, we gotta fight some monsters first. Kill the shark. Classic D&D stuff. We're fighting sharks on our boat. So if you go ahead and take a look at this continent, so again, the red arrow is where we are at. So the town that we need to go to is right here. It's called Melmond. Ooh, Buccaneers. These guys are worth a good chunk of money, I think. Alright. So you can see, right, like if you look at the pixel, right, the earth, the town, the earth itself is beginning to rot and turn into sort of a swampy morass. And as we enter this town, you will see that it is very different than the other towns that we have been in. You can see that there's gravestones everywhere. And, the buildings are collapsed, the earth, the stones, this town was once a thriving place, but it's basically begun to completely collapse and rot. So, if the earth crystal regains its glow, life will return to the earth, the hills and valley will be green again. So, we are here to restore the earth crystal. Now, we're also here to pick up some new magic. So this is level 5 magic. So we've got a couple cool options now. So we've got Fire Aga, which is our most powerful fire spell. We're definitely going to be picking that one up. Scourge says it instantly kills all enemies. What are the odds this actually instantly kills all enemies? That's right, very low. You can think of this as kind of like the incapacitation spells from PF2. It's useful against lower level creatures, but it's not particularly useful. Teleport, on the other hand, can be pretty interesting and useful. It basically zaps you back up 1 level. So if you're on level 4 of a dungeon, it'll take you back up to level 3, and so on and so forth. And Slowra is, it targets 1 enemy, and it makes that enemy do less attacks. So this is really only useful against a melee-heavy boss, of which there are not really that many in the game. So we're definitely going to pick up Fire Aga. But we may hold off on the other ones of these for a little bit. We'll probably pick up Teleport, but let's see what else we got here. All right, so now we get some big money stuff. And now we actually have a really important decision to make. These are all really good spells. So Curaga is the most powerful cure spell. It heals a lot of HP to 1 ally. Life. Now, up until this point in the game, especially since we're not using Phoenix Downs, the only way that we could restore a character to life that had been killed was going all the way back to a town and using the clinic, or the hospital, or the shrine, or the church. But now we have this. Now, Diaga is a massive AoE damage to undead enemies, and it is very powerful, and the Earth Cave that we're about to go into does have a lot of undead enemies. And lastly, Heal Aura is the second most powerful heal spell. And heal versus cure. Cure only is a single target. Heal targets the entire party. So being able to do a complete party heal can be very, very powerful, considering that if you get hit by like an AoE or a spell or something like that. So these are actually really tough choices to make. I'm definitely going to get Curaga. I'm going to pick up Life. And then this one is a tough choice. Now, I like Diaga too much, but ultimately, I mean, we need our White Mage to heal. So I'm going to take the Heal Aura. Now, it should be pointed out here that we're already down to 16,000 gil. And when we look at our magic, our characters still have level 6 spell slots that we have not yet managed to open up. So, to find. So we're actually, again, kind of ahead of the curve here. In the cave on the southern tip of this continent lives a man named Sada. He is a wise man who knows much. Well, thank you. Oh, I've heard the ancients possessed something with the power to make ships float in the sky, thus beginning the infamous association of Final Fantasy with airships. Now, what I'm really looking to do here is start upgrading our weapons. Now, the longsword is a better weapon, and it's pretty cheap, all things considered. However, I know something that they don't know, which is that now that we have our ship, we can fly, or we can sail our ship kind of to the other side of the world, and we can go to Crescent Lake. And once we're in Crescent Lake, we can actually buy a silver sword. The problem is, silver swords are ridiculously expensive, but they're also incredibly powerful. Now, of course, I also want to get this, the Knight's Armor. However, it costs 36,000 gil, which, of course, is insane. So we are back to being broke. Unfortunately. So again, she's going to go from defense 4 to defense 15, which is really good. And that shouldn't affect his attacks. The grind does continue. Let's sell some of our stuff here. Hold on a second. We get some extra stuff here. All right, what are we gonna sell here? Why won't you let me sell that? Oh, because it's equipped. All right. Alrighty, well, now, there's sort of good news and bad news. The good news, the Cavern of Earth, which is where we need to go, is to the south of Melmond, on a peninsula called the Devil's Tail. Oh, it used to be the closer you got to the cave, the more fertile the soil, but now it is a barren waste. The earth is decaying, and it's all the doing of that vampire that lives in the Cavern of Earth. And we need to go stop the vampire. So, the problem is we need money. So again, we can see here, you know, this kind of triangular-shaped continent to the west of us. That's the Devil's Tail, where we must go. I don't recall how much a silver sword is, but I think it's very expensive. And as a result of that, well, we'll find out. So I'm going to go see if we can go buy it, because I really want to get the silver sword and see how much we need to work. So we're going to go on an adventure. All right. I'm going on an adventure. By the way, here's the Devil's Tail, and you can see here on the left side of the screen, that is the Earth Cave. That is actually where we're going to have to go to actually go do stuff. But this is a classic example of where the party's like, look, I mean, this is a hex crawl, you know. We're like, hey, we don't need to go there next, you know. We can go to the next town because they have better gear, and we want to level up and get better gear before we go do the adventure that the GM had planned for us. Screw the GM and his plans. Saber pick up, nice. That's the Marsh Cave. That's where we were before. Jesus. Math Guy Dave says 4,000 for the silver sword. Let's hope. That sounds good to me, buddy. In which case, we will be buying. Because we have enough for that. Damien says, after I beat the Earth Cave, I always get the airship next and get the rat tail for Bahamut. It is true. You can do things kind of out of order once you beat the Earth. Once you beat the Earth Cave. Once you beat the Earth Cave, they will give you the canoe, and once you hit the canoe, you can go down the rivers, and at that point the game becomes very, very extensive. You can go to the volcano to fight the fire fiend. You can go to the ice cave where you can get the floater, which gets you the airship, and you can also go to the Castle of Ordeals to get the rat tail to prove your worth to Bahamut. And then once you have the airship, you can go get your class change, basically where everybody gets a prestige class and everybody kind of changes their class. They go to their advanced class. But you don't have to do it in that order. You can go in a different order if you want to. So there's a lot of choices, which is cool. It's a neat part of the game. Yes. But the grinding will continue. By the way, as a reminder, here on Twitch, if you want to support the channel, we'd love your Twitch Prime subs. Those are always appreciated. It's free if you have Amazon Prime, and it's a cool way to keep this channel going, so that your boy Derek doesn't have to, you know, go get a 9-to-5 job and give up on his dreams of being a YouTuber, even though that was never my dream. I am looking forward, though, to this coming Friday. I'm kind of excited. We talked about this at the stream the other day, but we're going to be kicking off a new campaign. So that's pretty exciting. Always exciting to do that. Now, my Friday group has been my traditional group for the last 25 years. And unfortunately, the last year or two has been pretty dang inconsistent, unfortunately. This past year, in 2025, I would say is the least amount of gaming I have done with my buddies in basically my entire life, unfortunately. And, hey, thank you for the follow, Math Guy Dave. And, ooh. Minotaurs and Trolls. Tougher monsters. Don't worry. I have faith that we can beat these guys. Just to be sure, though, because we're almost at town, I am going to drop my level 3 fire spell. Alright, not a problem. Yeah, the classic troll with the headache. Oh, look at that. Fire 3 fucking doing the damage. Look at that. How much gil we got for that? That's sick. Just level up here. So Lollipop wants to know, are we going to be playing with Smith for our new Friday campaign? So the deal is, you know, I don't want to put any pressure on Smith. So we are, you know, he's going to be obviously welcome to come. But we are going to be playing online, actually. So traditionally, we have played at Smith's house and in his basement. And our buddy Kaz, who lives on the west coast of the U.S., joins us in sort of a hybrid form. But because of Smith's schedule, because of Smith's obligations, you know, he just doesn't have the ability to be, you know, he can't be consistently there. So we are going to be playing full-time remote because that just makes it a little bit easier for some of the other guys as well. And Kaz is already remote. Cinnabus, is this our first? No. During COVID, we ran Abomination Vaults. We played Abomination Vaults online with Smith, Tim, Bob, Kaz, and George. So we had a 5-person game, and that was fun. But so we've played with this group completely virtually before as well. Now this was, of course, you know, probably like my second campaign or third campaign that I'd ever played online. The first campaign I remember playing online was Smith had a 5e campaign that I think started at the very beginning of COVID. And, you know, that was fine. That was fun. But, you know, the classic example of Bob, I don't think Bob played in that one, as I recall. But, like, you know, when we would play Abomination Vaults, this is the classic, you know, where Bob would be building a puzzle, you know, like when it wasn't his turn, he would like literally have like not like a computer puzzle, but like an actual physical puzzle. You know, so that the joke was that when we finally decided to play online, Bob was like, okay, I'll make sure I go get a new puzzle. So you know, I'm not in love with the idea of playing online, but it will help us. All right, so here we go. Mithril Sword, only 3,200. It basically is free. So this is interesting. So the Mithril Sword increases our accuracy by 15 and our attack power. So attack power is how much damage you do. Accuracy is how much you hit by. The Mithril Axe is a little bit more damage, but it's less accuracy. I'm not going to tempt fate. I'm just going to get this. All right. Now, if we want to be really baller, we can buy our level 6 magic. Because we do have level 6 spells. So, Stona cures you from being petrified. Exit is a baller spell that just completely removes you from the dungeon. We will probably be getting this and then be broke. Proterra gives every party member a boost to their defense, which means that they have basically increased damage absorption. And Invisra raises the evasion of everyone in the party, meaning the enemies are much more likely to miss. Now, both of these are very, very good. But there are some items that you get later in the game that allow you to cast certain spells basically for free. And one of those spells is, I think it's called the White Shirt, I think. And it basically casts Invisra on the party. But I just want to see what else we have available before we spend all of our money on Exit. Exit's nice, because in this game, when you beat the dungeon, you got to walk your ass back out. So we've got Thundaga, which deals lightning damage to all foes. Death, which instantly kills one enemy. Quake, which potentially could kill multiple enemies. And Stun, which paralyzes one enemy. Well, we're not going to be taking any of those. All right, Exit it is. That way, if we need to, we can just teleport out of the dungeon. Oh, look at that. We can't learn it yet because, now you might say, well, wait, it's the White Mage. Well, right, because the Exit spell is not for the White Mage. It is for the White Wizard. And so we cannot, even though we have level 6 spells, the Exit spell is not on the White Mage's spell list. It is only on the White Wizard's spell list, which is my improved class. So instead, we'll just take Invisra. That's right, Saruman. Cinnabos, it's so funny that you're saying that. Exit makes me think of evac from EQ and how many times I hit it on accident. Obvious in chat here. This obvious. My buddy George. I wasn't even actually here for this incident, but there is a famous incident where he accidentally evac'd the party. They were playing EverQuest 2, but he accidentally evac'd the party, and it's considered to be legendary in the level in the scale of how the fuck up, like, because they were like, you know, he was running around and they were on, like, you know, on TeamSpeak or whatever, and you know he was going no, and so it's pretty funny. Now these are hill giants, aka hill gigas. So these guys are pretty tough, but we're doing okay against them. Hey, look at that. The whole party leveled up. All right, Smith picked up some agility, a little bit of hit points. Bob still really struggling on the hit points, but just picked up strength, agility, and stamina, which is fantastic for him. Homblade got stamina, which is okay. We'd rather see some intellect. And Poirot, our black mage, continues to rock and roll with an incredibly high intellect, which is great. So we're going to go back to our boat now that we have the silver sword, and we've got some level 6 magic. And now we can kick ass. That's a little bit overkill, don't you think? Have I looked at Monsters and Memories, a new I don't play any video games. Math guy Dave. I think this is the first video game I have played in several years. I think the last time I played a video game was during COVID. I played I was playing some Total War Warhammer. So anyways, our goal tonight will be, we are going to try to deal with the problem. I mean, obviously this vampire is clearly the problem, right? So we'll go and deal with this vampire and make sure that we restore the earth to a balance. Because clearly the vampire must be behind all of the evil that is happening to this poor and unfortunate land. Ooh, you can see that Smith is now doing 4 hits, which is great. For what it's worth, by the way, if I made a TTJRPG, I would really, really, really want the mechanics of the TTJRPG to mostly align in some ways with Final Fantasy. Now, I don't exactly know how I would do that in terms of the attack roll, But I love the idea. I mean, your characters essentially never miss in this game. Like, you have an accuracy statistic, but the accuracy statistic is really just a question of how many hits do you land, right? The enemy has an evasion, you have an accuracy, and from that you determine, do you get 2 hits, 3 hits, 4 hits, and then those number of hits are multiplied by your damage value. So it's really just a question of how many times do you hit and how much damage do you do with those hits. So obviously that's really nice for a computer, but the net effect of it is you never miss. So I really like that. It's a bit like a tiered success lollipop. I'm not exactly sure, what the best way to implement that as a TTRPG would be, but it's definitely something that I think is very satisfying. I mean, to be fair, it's I don't really even care. You could accomplish kind of the same thing with with a damage roll, and just say you automatically hit. How much damage do you do? I mean, that's essentially the same thing. But I also really think that in this time, in this place, from a TTRPG perspective, that if you are ever just attacking to do damage, I think we can do better than that, unless your character is like very specifically a super heavy damage dealing. I just think it's really difficult in TTRPGs to get over the fact that dead is the best status, and dealing damage is almost always a preferable solution, and that it's almost always preferable to stack your damage up onto one monster. And I think that, like, for me to want to create anything resembling like a trad RPG, where you have like attack rolls and damage rolls and stuff like that, I would need to figure out how to basically deal with that issue. And I don't really know that there's a good solution for it, unfortunately. So we are now in the Earth Cave. And what is very famous, one of the things about the Earth Cave you can see here on the mini-map, let me see if I can increase the mini-map. Oh, there we go. So there's the big mini-map inside of the dungeon. So on the left side of your screen, you'll see that there's this north-south corridor. Like right there. And what's interesting about that corridor is known as the Hall of Giants. And every single step you take in that hall will be a random encounter with a bunch of giants. And giants give you a fair amount of experience points and a fair amount of gold. And so this is one of the first places in the game that is legit, that isn't the Peninsula of Power, which was a bug. And in this version of the game, they fixed, so you can't do the Peninsula of Power trick. But this is one of the first major quote-unquote grinding spots in the game, because you can just kill giants and get a lot of money to buy all those really expensive spells that we just saw, and that knight armor, which is 36,000. But also, too, there is a sword you can get later on called a giant slaying sword, and that makes you just do an insane amount of damage, double basically against giants. So you're basically one-shotting the giant with every swing of your sword, and it can make grinding there and getting treasure pretty easy. So the Earth Cave, it's got a decent amount of undead. It's got some poison-causing enemies, but as we get deeper and lower, we're gonna see giants. We're gonna see our first elementals, earth elementals, and remember those like boss monsters, the Pisco demons, basically the mind flayers. Yeah, they're just on the random encounter chart here in the Earth Cave. So here we got some more ogres and an ogre chief. Look at Bob just taking people out. Monsters! Oh, there we go, an earth elemental. Whew. Big hit. Ton of experience points, though. And 2,000 gil. We'll take it. So, Jacob, draw steel. So, Jacob said draw steel. Everything does damage. Just have different effects and amount of damage. I mean, obviously there are different there are different scales to that. Like, there's elements of draw steal that I like, but you know, I don't like the whole potency thing. I'm still kind of not sold on that, and I don't necessarily like that you can still feel like, you know, that you can have this effect that doesn't do damage. That being said, Jacob, I think that, you know, the newer games, for lack of a better word, that have kind of done away with attack rolls to a certain extent, you know, are definitely a sort of a wave of the future. And I'm very excited about the way that Draw Steel handles things. Personally, I would rather do something that is a little bit more... Ooh, mummies. Well, those guys kind of went down like a bitch. All right. I would rather do something like 4th edition plus strike plus draw steel / you know, nimble kind of style. And, you know, for those of you who don't know Strike, it was a game that kind of never really got off the ground because the creator kind of... Oh, how about you want to bet there's a monster right here? Oh, in the chest. Strike was a game that, you know, it's very poorly formatted and it never really fully got finished. But one of the core ideas of Strike is that every attack in the game has 2 components. Okay, every attack in the game has a damage component and an effect component. And now that game, Strike, uses a D6. And shocker, I would change it. But the way that it works in Strike is that you roll the D6. And if you roll a 1 or a 2, I think you miss. And if you roll a 3, 4, or a 5... sorry, I said that wrong. If you roll a 1, you miss completely. If you roll a 2 or a 3, you either you hit, but you either get to do the damage or you get to do the effect. So let's say that your, you know, power was called like Smashing Strike, and it did, you know, 5 points of damage and knocked the target prone. So the effect is knock prone, the damage is 5. If you roll your D6 and you get a 2 or a 3, you either do 5 damage or you knock them prone. You get to pick. So, which is more important to you right now? Now, in some ways, that's cool, but it could still suffer from the, well, shouldn't I just always do the damage? And that still gets back to the whole, like, how do we make it so that, like, it's meaningful to, you know, inflict status penalties onto monsters? And then, but in Strike, if you roll a 4 or a 5, you hit and you get to do both. You get to do your damage and your effect. And then if you roll a 6, you critically hit, in which case your damage is doubled and you also get the effect. Oops. Jammed up there. So, that's a really cool idea to me. I just don't know how, you know, how viable it is in the context of our understanding of role-playing games. So it's still not perfect because there's still this issue of, you know, well, why don't we just do damage? So again, I respect, you know, what Draw Steel accomplishes by basically saying everyone does damage all the time. But I worry sometimes that might become just, like, too boring. But I don't know. I haven't played Draw Steel, except for, you know, once during the beta, where we did that, like, tower adventure. What the shit? Why are you curing on auto attack? Oh man, that chest contained a potion. What a rip. See, it's awesome when my fighter gets hit and it gets hit for 2 damage. That's so satisfying. That's so satisfying. I think I think damage absorption is so much more satisfying than having a high armor class when you're wearing armor. You know what I mean? Like, like it's just so satisfying to get hit and just like have this like minuscule amount of damage. It's one of the reasons why I think damage reduction is so disappointing in Pathfinder 2. And you know, the damage reduction when you're raging in 5e is so much more satisfying, because just saying I'm going to take half, right? That feels so much better than, you know, oh, take off, you know, hey, you take 52 damage. Take off 5. I only take 47. You know, that just feels terrible. That's one place where I think 5th edition does an excellent job. I think the 5th edition Barbarian is a very well designed class in how straightforward and effective it is, and how the powers and abilities make you feel, you know, cool. All right, Bob picked up strength. That's good. Our white mage is now over 300 HP. That's great. And Hoyrit is continuing to max out intellect, which is great, because intellect means that our black mage is going to do more damage with his spells. Monktor, are there any systems that focus on things like stances and conditions with actions, and the final goal is some killing stroke and not wearing down some large amount of hit points? Not that I'm aware of, Monktor. I mean, like, there's different games like Torchbearer, but like the combat there is not anything that most people would consider to be, you know, normal combat, right? It's like really weird and abstract and all these stupid freaking bugs. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. I'm interested. Oop, went the wrong way. Oh, we went the wrong way. We got completely hosed there. Ooh, big fight. I'll use a spell here. I'll use a fire. Look at that. 3 hits and he only got hit for 13. 15. Love it. Just feels like such a badass. Nice job, Bob. Oh, do you see the troll regenerate there? 9 whole hit points. I mean, the other problem with TTRPGs is that combats are over really quick. In fact, in many ways, although it doesn't seem like it, most TTRPG combats are over about as quickly as combats are in Final Fantasy 1. You know, sometimes, you know, people go 2-3 times, maybe. You know, and realistically, just like in, you know, whatever these, you know, other games, like if I was fighting 3 giants, right, that could potentially be a little bit scary. But once I've killed 2 of them and I'm down to 1 giant, you know, 1 giant is never going to be able to do enough damage to really threaten me in any sort of meaningful way. So there you go. That was 3 rounds of combat. And so part of the problem is that like something like a debuff is only, its use is really tied to how often or how long that debuff is going to be in effect. Another way of saying, if the combat is going to be over in 2 or 3 rounds anyways, then there's kind of no point to debuffing people, because, you know, you could just as easily kill them. But the alternative is to have a creature that has way too much hit points, and it's going to take 8 or 9 rounds of attacking it, and then you've got this hit point bloat, and people complain about the combat being a slog. So, you know, in sort of trying to solve one issue, you end up creating another issue, which is the dominancy of just, you know, dealing a lot of damage and getting them killed. And unfortunately, because of the way that these games are designed, which is to say that the players are basically going to win every single fight, it's not really a situation where you can... Right, dead is the best status effect. So it's really difficult to balance a game assuming that the players are going to, you know, debuff the enemies. Right. And that's a good point too, Monctor. Or the conditions are so required to be successful that they feel like a chore, and that's not a good outcome either. Exactly. So, I don't know that there's a particularly good solution to that. Now, one of the solutions, which is not a solution that most people are going to be happy with, but one of the solutions has been just, making combat, less of a focus of the game. And, where are we going here? Okay, we can go to the right. And so, in that way, it kind of doesn't matter if the fighting isn't really satisfying. I mean, I guess what it comes down to is I'm just at a point in my life where most D&D combats, Pathfinder 2 combats, are about as exciting and interesting as these combats, if I'm being honest. And obviously these are mindless and brain dead, and it's like, well, of course I'm going to win. Ooh, the Coral Sword. Is that probably not better than our Wormslayer? But no, it's not. But it does extra damage against a sword that is effective against aquatic enemies. So Mithril Sword is better, but the Coral Sword might be useful when we're out and about. So, yeah, so basically I just don't, most of my most of your fights nowadays is just like, yeah, you go through the motions, you hit the buttons, you kill the monsters, and then they're dead. It's not really, I think, anything that's particularly, I hate to say it, but it's just not particularly exciting. And unfortunately, that's kind of the reality of the world that we're in. And so I find it to be very unappealing in that regard. Because even most games, like, look at these fights. Now, I do take damage sometimes. But then, and by the way, like, this is the problem. This is like the Cure Light Wounds wand spam that really kind of defined 3rd edition. Which is, okay, the fight is over. Now, clearly, I don't need to heal to full hit points, right? Like, there's very little chance that the next fight is going to reduce me to 0 hit points. But I have all these potions. So why wouldn't I just top off my hit points after every fight? So now, a fight is meaningless unless it threatens to do enough damage to kill me. Right? Because the idea of the sort of ablative nature of hit points has now been reduced. And it doesn't mean anything anymore. So now the only way that I'm in trouble is if I lose all of my hit points in a single encounter. Or if the dungeon is so long and so grindy that I potentially run out of, my 99 healing potions. And this was really not an issue in 3rd edition / Pathfinder 1 because you would have, 5, 6, 7 wands of Cure Light Wounds, representing potentially hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of essentially free hit point recovery. I mean, it's to the point where my white mage has magic to cast these spells to heal. And I'm not even using them because the potions are so cheap. And I've gotten to the point in the game where the cost of a potion is so meaningless that I can just, just use that instead. Oh, monsters. All right. I see you, Ogre Chief. All right, we're going to drop a big boy. Just because it feels thematically appropriate. Yeah, fireball. So Karama says that had some fun trying out Lancer next week. The fight did take a while, but it didn't feel like a slog because the sit rep was to survive 4 rounds and keep the exit point clear. Totally reasonable. However, I don't, how long did that fight take? 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours? I just can't. I just don't want to play a single TTRPG combat that lasts that long. I just can't. I just can't do it. Um, so that's my problem there. You know, I want a fast, meaningful combat that, you know, is also over quickly, you know. Ooh, 5,000 gold. That's nice. Ah! There we go. Yeah, I mean, Nimble's fine, but the problem I have with Nimble is it's almost so simple as to not really being satisfying either. Not that I think it's bad or anything like that. It's just like I'm kind of getting to the point where I don't need combat to actually be like a miniature game anymore. Like, combat can just be this kind of representational element. You know, Torchbearer really kind of highlighted that for me. Although I do think it still took way too long in Torchbearer too. Yeah, I mean, Daggerheart obviously has a very different goal, right? Which is the combat isn't there to design to like challenge you and force you to be, you know, to make it difficult on purpose. It's there just to like look cool and do cool shit. So I do say that. Yeah, actually, I talked with Wes. I talked with God, his name is escaping me. It's not Tristan. Oh God, why can't I think of Indestructible Boy's name? But he was at PAX U, and we chatted for a little bit. So Taryn. I said Tristan. All right, I was somewhere in the ballpark. Yeah, so I talked with Taryn for a little bit at PAX U. You know, I definitely, I could definitely vibe with what he's, you know, trying to do. All right, we got a bunch of treasure chests in there. We got a chamber over there. We got a chamber down there. Chamber right there. Lots of chambers. All right. Let's go stop this vampire menace once and for all, because clearly that is what is responsible for the destruction of their... See, look what I said. Look at this. Before, these were boss monsters. Now they're just random encounters. And by the way, this is something that, again, I've talked about this with D&Ds before. I love the idea of encountering a monster number of times, where at one point it was literally a boss monster, and now it's just like a monster that you know, encounter, which is like, I think that's really cool. Ooh, ochre jellies. I don't know if these guys can take damage from physical attacks. Yes, they can. Some of the slimes can only be hurt by magic. All right. Our fighter's just taking those hits. And you know, if the fighter's taking 22, it's pretty nasty. So like I said, we're gonna go kill this vampire. We're gonna get this ruby, and we'll probably call it a night after that. Although if people want to hang out for a little bit and chat RPGs, we can do that as well. Again, there are many reasons why I don't play video games, and one of them is that I don't have the ability that some people have to sit there and play a video game for hours and hours and hours. I treat a video game session a lot like watching a movie. I'm good for, 2 hours, give or take. And then that's it. It's the same thing with TV shows. Not that I really watch TV shows anymore, but back when I did watch TV shows, I would watch, 2 or 3 episodes. And it's like, then I would stop for the day. I can't. I've never binge watched anything in my life. I can't do it. I do not know how people do it. It's like a magic power to me. So, that's definitely not something that I do anymore or ever. So that's also one of the reasons I don't watch TV shows, because people are like, you know, they're like, oh, you should watch, you know, Andor. And I'm like, and they're like, yeah, I watched it last week. And I'm like, that would take me like 2 months, and, you know, or at least. Oh, I didn't realize our black mage is kind of messed up. Hopefully, he doesn't get hit here. True, Wes. That is true. But, you know, in theory, it's an active conversation, right? You're saying something, I'm saying back to you. I think it's a lot. I can sit down and have a conversation with somebody for hours and hours and hours. That is way, way more reasonable. Ain't that the truth, KC? We have oh, by the way, Kieran, I saw that you tried to tip. I don't know if that works in this, I don't know if that works on this channel, unfortunately. Not saying that, like, you were trying to tip me or anything, but, I'm trying to think of where the tip. I don't know actually where my tipping page is. Tip panel. There we go. I was trying. Yeah, it's because we're on this, you know, new situation or new situation. So that's the link. Yeah, Casey, I'm right there with you. I can barely play them. But yeah, there's just so many new games coming out all the time, and, you know, I mean, look at me. I mean, I've got, woo! That is a lot of ogres. Love it. Let's get to work, boys. Let's drop a frickin' big ass fireball. This is going to be a really satisfying fireball. I hope my black mage goes before my black melt goes. Yeah! I hope he kills them all. Look at that. Ugh.
I am strong! Strong! Strong!
There are a few things more satisfying than just dropping a fireball and watching an encounter just get deleted. Oh! Cockatrice. This is our first monster that can turn us to stone. No, and see, that's what's so cool. Like, just when you're like, oh, I have all these hit points in the world and nothing can stop me, all of a sudden I'm like, please don't kill me. Does this go anywhere? Oh, yeah, we've already been down here. Ooh, 3,400 gil. Stop. All right, whew. There we go. Nice. Because I don't know that I have any ability to restore anybody from being turned to stone. Stop! Oh, preemptive strike is great. That means we'll get to go before they do. I'm definitely going to drop big money here. Here we go. And by the way, Not that I'm trying to prove a point, but you know the way that you know original D&D got around this HP slog is that at a certain point in the game, when your hit points were really high, and the monsters, you know, it's not like they weren't just like, oh, you have more hit points, so now the monsters all do, you know, 100 damage a hit. No, they were like, how about we switch it up, and now you have monsters that can turn you to stone. We have monsters that can instantly kill you. We have monsters that can level drain you, right? They started attacking you on a different axis than the hit points. And the same thing was true, oh, there's nothing in that room. The same thing was true for, the same thing is true for the player characters, right? When you started fighting monsters that, quote, had a lot of hit points, well, that's when, you know, you suddenly had access to your spells like Disintegrate and the Death Spell and, you know, Circle of Death, and you could just kill them and just bypass their hit points because, you know, why bother hacking your way through all this meat, this ogre meat, right? KC, we are currently in the Earth Cave, also called the Terra Cave, and we are in sort of Chapter 3 trying to free the town of Melmond from the corruption of the earth and restore the earth crystal. We've been led to believe that a powerful vampire rests here in the Earth Cave, and that if we destroy the vampire, who is draining the earth of its life essence, that the power of the crystal will be restored and all will be well. Somehow I don't believe him. Something more nefarious than that must lay in the depths. Man, Bob got hit hard there. All right. Get out of the way, bats. All right, here we go. Ooh, Wraith. All right. Go, White Mage. Turn undead. Nicely done. Oh, a single solitary bat. Could this be the vampire? All things in this world are destined to end in death. The seal cannot be broken, and so the earth shall rot. Oh, look at that. Very cool. You cannot alter destiny. Mere mortals cannot kill the undying. We'll see about that. Now, what's really cool about this is just a monster. Later in the game, you'll have vampires will be on the random encounter table. But now I am going to embarrass this thing because we are really powerful. But we're gonna go full ham here. Let's haste our black belt and see if son of a bitch. I mean, he got paralyzed. Son of a bitch. Alright. Let's try that again. Oh shit, we're actually in trouble now. Hopefully these guys recover from their paralyzation soon. The vampire is stream sniping me. There's like no way to cure being you can like restore somebody to life, but you can't recover them from being stunned. All right, well, hopefully this fireball can take care of this vampire, else we are in trouble. All right, wizards. All right, mages, light this guy up. All right, the white mage got him with a critical hit from his turn undead. That was awesome. Oh, that was hilarious. I literally hasted both of my main melee combatants, and then they both instantly got paralyzed by the vampire's gaze. That was awesome. See, that is why you take the diarrhea. KC calls it diarrhea because that's what his brother called him. That's funny. That was awesome. Oh, strange. We seem to have defeated the vampire, but nothing seems to have changed. It's almost as if there was some other force at work. What could it be? You obtain the Star Ruby. All right. Seems to be some sort of quest item, clearly not of monetary value. But what is this door beyond? Oh, preemptive strike. Oh, shit, I forgot my black mage was almost dead. Yeah, the vampire was definitely like, okay, who's got low will saves? Okay, the fighter and the monk. All right, taking them out. Oh, this must be... Wait. A stone slab is set in the floor. An evil force seems to emanate from within. Could this be the darkness that is truly destroying the earth? I cannot seem to get past this stone slab. Hopefully we can find a way through beyond this. So, spoiler alert, for those of you who have not played before, we are on level 3 of the Earth Cave. And this is a really cool thing. Remember how I, in my Project Shadow Deep dungeons, one of the things I talked about that makes a mega dungeon cool, not that this is a mega dungeon, but it's one of the larger dungeons in the game, is this idea of revisiting areas and dungeons in the past. So what's really neat about this is you kill the vampire, you're led to believe that that is the final boss, but you find this impassable stone slab in the back. And you learn, of course, that the vampire was not the real cause of the Earth's destruction. And you eventually obtain this magical rod, which you can use in order to get past that stone slab. So then you have to come back through the entire dungeon to where you know, just what we just did, but just do it again. And then you have the item to remove the stone slab. And then you get to access the lower levels of the dungeon. And so in a sense, you replay the dungeon that you just played. And you kind of saw us do that with the Marsh Cave when we went back to get the elite treasures that were located at the bottom. I think that's really cool. I think that's, number one, it's a great way to get good real estate out of your dungeon design. But also, it's really neat. Oh, we're out of turn undeads. Yep. All right, I'll do that. And I think that's really, really neat. I don't think these things are that tough, but they can paralyze you, so you got to be careful. Oh, yep, Bob is paralyzed. Well, when in doubt, Fireball will always take care of the undead. What existing TTRPG systems support this kind of dungeon experience? OSE? Yes, I would say that, you know, classic D&D, BX D&D works really well. Obviously, I think Torchbearer does a really good job of that as well. Obviously, Torchbearer has a slightly different situation than the other, you know, example. But you know, the real key here is, you know, we're probably over leveled for what we need to be at, which is why this is quote unquote easy. But you know, the idea is that you want to wear down the resources of your opponent and watch them get kind of get grinded down, and have these sort of you know, have exploration be the biggest part of your game. And that's, in theory, what OSE is explored, you know, is done to. And the way that resource gets ground down is through these really quick fights. Because if you were, you know, fighting them, and if each of these random encounters took 45 minutes to resolve, it would be painful. Of course, this is why D&D takes years to get through a full campaign, and you can beat Final Fantasy 7 or Final Fantasy 1 in like under 20 hours. We are running out of fireballs. That's okay. Once we're off of level 3, it won't be as bad. I don't want to get... Now, if we got turned to stone, it wouldn't be like the end of the world. All right. Ooh, we're ambushed, so... No, there are only 4 up. Well, never mind. I was like, well, maybe I won't use a fireball. But... this is our last AoE fire spell. We do have some AoE ice spell. Oh, no, we have 1 mega fireball left. Okay, so we've got that. Mummy sleep you. Yeah, I guess I don't quite know why they sleep you, but... Now, see, it's also interesting. Now, I understand that I'm playing all of these characters, right? I'm playing... So, this is just one of those interesting things that sort of... Oh, nice level up. Oh, never mind. I thought the hit points went to 389. But we are getting close to 400 hit points. I just want to take this moment to talk about something real quick, which is... So, in the context of original D&D, Now, this game isn't even really fair, because in this game, when we fight monsters, that's how we get experience points, and that's how we get treasure. Okay? But to be fair, we're getting treasure at the same time. But that's because these video games didn't have the complexity and the systems in order to sort of award XP for treasure. But you can obviously see that in these games, there are these chests that contain a ton of treasure. And you can easily see where that would be where you earned your experience points. And then suddenly the idea of grinding goes away, because you can't grind. You have to go find the treasure and unlock it. But what I wanted to point out here was, I understand that I'm playing all 4 of my characters. But when you have a random encounter, okay, when most of the combats that you have in a game are random encounters, then when the wizard just throws off, at that point, a fight becomes an annoyance, right? Because you're not going to get any... Oh, okay. Well, there goes Smith. Well, good luck, party. That's a beat. Luckily, we're leaving the dungeon. Did I pick up a gold needle? I did. If I did, I didn't know that. All right. Well, that's fortuitous, Longtor. I'm glad you're paying attention, and I am not. I didn't think I had one. Kind of cold action. Oh, that just did not do a lot of damage. Okay. Apparently I have a gold needle, which is also known as a soft potion in the original game, but... Oh, I do. I have 1 gold needle. Boom. Perfect. Well, that's convenient. Alright, never mind. Smith is back. So, what I was saying is that when you get into these random encounters, and especially in original D&D, random encounters, they didn't really award you any experience points. And they didn't really give you any gold. So not only did you not get gold, but gold is also how you got experience points. And the monsters themselves didn't really give you much of experience points. So in other words, the fights were annoying. Which meant that when your wizard just went, guys, I got this, and just cast a fireball and killed everything in 1 round, nobody was like, oh, man, I hate the wizard. He's just ruining my experience, and I just wanted to... No, everyone's like, thank God, nobody wanted to fight that. And I think that's something that I think people don't... I think modern sensibilities and tastes and everything like that have changed significantly, and the way that... Oh, random encounters was absolutely a penalty. In fact, random encounters were the penalty for exploring the dungeon. If you wasted your time and spent a lot of time in the dungeon, you were going to get random encounters. Random encounters were a punishment. They were designed, they drained your resources, and they didn't do anything for you. They ate up time in the dungeon, they ate up hit points, they just were a pain in the butt. And they could kill you. Things were dangerous and deadly, and they didn't really give you anything for it. Random encounters, monsters didn't really carry treasure, and you didn't get that much experience points from killing monsters. Most of the experience points you got in the game came from treasure. And since monsters didn't have treasure, they didn't really give you much, they give you many experience points. So it was a penalty. Very much so. It was a stick. And so when you could have a member of your party, like a spellcaster, just rip off and kill them all, nobody was like, oh, that wizard, kill-stealed my cool thing. No, because fighting wasn't the point of the game. I know people have this impression of old school D&D as it being like, oh, it's all about fighting. It really wasn't. It really wasn't. And so, it was about getting treasure in the easiest way possible. That was the only thing that mattered in the original D&D. And so that is what the game was predicated on. Now, obviously, sensibilities and tastes have changed. But what's fucked up about D&D is so much of I'm talking about 5th edition here, is so much of the core mechanics of D&D are still based around that core assumption of the game. And that's why I think people have a lot of problems and struggle with it mightily. because that it's still, at the end of the day, pretty much the same game as it was back in, 77, 1981, 1974. And so, yeah, it was a very different situation that we were in. Like, for example, when I encounter these monsters in this game, sometimes they run away. And that's a little annoying because in this game, this is how I get experience points and treasure. But imagine if you were playing original D&D and the GM rolled an encounter and 9 gargoyles attacked you. And you're thinking to yourselves, well, these gargoyles, they're going to be able to do damage to me. I'm going to lose hit points. And I don't have unlimited ability to restore my health and hit points and all that other stuff. I don't want to fight these things. They're not going to award me any treasure. And they're barely going to award me any experience points. Certainly, the juice is not worth the squeeze. And then, let's say the gargoyles start running away. You're going to go, fuck yeah, that's awesome. Because if they stood and fought to the death, sure, I might be definitely going to win. But they're going to eat up hit points, and they're going to eat up resources on their way out. And because of that, it's really annoying. Actually, it's midnight here. We got enough resources, I think. We're gonna go get the go get the rod. I think it's over here. We got that star ruby from the vampire. Look at this big giant thing. I wonder what it eats. Spoiler alert, it eats rubies. And by the way, this is one of the things that D&D can do that D&D can do that how can I phrase it? Like a sandbox campaign could do that D&D could never do. I'm sorry, D&D could do this, Final Fantasy could never do this, and modern D&D could never do it, which is this. Now, in this game, this giant, okay, which in the original game was called a Titan, blocks this cave, blocks this tunnel, right? And we need to get through this tunnel to get to the wise sage Sarda, who has the magical rod, which we can use to smash the seal and go into the very lower depths of the Earth Cave to confront the great fiend of the Earth, Lich. Now, in this game, there is no way that I can fight this creature, right? Meaning it's not a fightable creature in any sense of the imagination. But in a classic D&D sense, I could put this monster here, and it would have a level. Now, it might not attack you immediately, but you could attack it. And in theory, if you were high enough level, or you had a clever enough plan, or you had dope characters with really broken stats and a really powerful sword, you wouldn't even need to go get the ruby. You could just kill this motherfucker and be on your way. Or you could sneak past him. Or you could go get the star, or you talk to him and he tells you that, or you learn from people in town that the giant, loves eating precious minerals, and then you find this star ruby and you go, oh, maybe I can use that in order to convince the giant to move, blah, blah, blah. Now, in a video game like this, it's super hyper railroady, right? And you have to give him the star ruby. But the fun of D&D is exactly that you could handle this situation in a million of different ways. Like you said, you could cast Pass Wall and just magically move through the tunnels without even fighting this guy. Or you could sneak past him. Or you could just kill him. You could fight him if you were high enough level. And that's one of the things that I think modern D&D loses because of this idea of the adventure pass. And there's no way that you could ever out-level this monster. So that means you're forced into this situation where you have to, get the MacGuffin, in this case the Star Ruby, and you have to deal with it. So it becomes more linear, it becomes more railroaded, like an old NES game, instead of, what we know as a role-playing game. You have Star Ruby? Give me Star Ruby, and I let you pass. And he eats it, and he gets the hell out the way. I agree, buddy. Nothing tastes better than rubies. In fact, he's just clipping right off of the screen. Love it. I don't think there's anything down here, is there? Oh man, there's monsters down here. And that's what I think is really fun about D&D, is that sort of non-linear problem solving, for sure. Now, don't get me wrong. I said D&D specifically, not TTRPGs, because there are other TTRPGs where I am playing that game in order to facilitate creating a specific type of narrative cinematic experience, right? Ooh, the Great Axe. Money. Ooh, Mithril Helm. We're equipping that bad boy right away. We are upgrading from the Great Helm to the Mithril Helm. What an upgrade there. Nice. Obvious. That's a nice community call out. Star Ruby, a word I understand in every language. So anyways, but when you're playing D&D, or what I would call a trad RPG, I think it's very tragic that it has been sort of replaced as this sort of combat spam games. Because I think what makes trad RPGs fun is that, non-linear problem solving and using the resources of the game in order to overcome problems. And sometimes that means just killing things. But, combat wasn't the default assumption in original D&D. Even though a lot of people say that they, I don't necessarily, there's this OSR saying, right? Combat is a fail state. No, I mean, sometimes the best option is to just kill them. That can absolutely be the case. Wow, we're fighting goblins. Literally the weakest monster in the game. We have this assumption now, because if you look at every single character class is capable of fighting. And in the original game of D&D, that wasn't the case, right? In the original game of D&D, the reason why the fighter was called the fighter was because the fighter was the one who was, guess what, good at fighting. Nobody else really was. You are the ones who defeated the vampire, huh? He was but a servant. The beast corrupting the earth crystal lurks much deeper within the cavern. Here, take this staff with you and use it beyond the vampire's chamber. You obtain the earth rod. All right, we will be able to use this magical rod in order to smash through the stone. All right, so now we would technically have to run back and do the dungeon again, and then smash through the stone, and then we would be able to think. But we are low on resources. We're out of spells. Even our potions have kind of started to run low. So what we are going to do is we are going to limp our way back to Melmond. We are going to re-equip our inventory with items. We're going to take a look. We've got 67,000 gil. So we are going to buy that really, really sexy, awesome knight armor. And then we are going to save the game and call it a night. And look, he's gone. Wouldn't be a pain in the ass if he was back and he's like, "Oh, you need a star ruby to pass." I'd be like, "Oh shit." Again, there's a lot of things that aren't great about, old school D&D. I'm not gonna say that it's the most perfect game that ever created. But all right, we're almost back to town. Suck my last massive fireball. Come on, Black Mage, go first, go first. I should have just had him defend. That would have been really satisfying. Bling. All right, well, we'll get 6. The other problem is this idea. So, because we're playing a game, the idea of so in D&D, right, we could go from the dungeon, right? If we were playing D&D, I could go into the dungeon, use all my spells after 2 fights, and then tell the GM, we're going back to town. And the GM goes, fine, you're back in town. And then we heal to full. And then I go, okay, we go back to the dungeon. And the DM just hand waves us going back to the dungeon. And so that's how you get the 15-minute adventuring day problem. Number one, in a video game, you actually have to spend the time walking back and forth, and it eats up time, and you would get really annoyed. Imagine playing this game, and every time you have like a fight or two, you went back to town to heal to full. You would drive yourself crazy. But outside of that, you also have all these random encounters. And so traveling back to town, not only is it a resource risk, but it's also just annoying. Again, random encounters were designed to be a punishment. And so, you kind of wanted, once you got to the dungeon, you kind of wanted to stay there. Because remember, in core D&D, all these random encounters that we're having on the overworld are basically giving us nothing. They're just eating up time and research. I mean, when I say time, I mean time at the session. And, it just gets annoying after a while. So eventually you get to the dungeon, you go, fuck it, we're staying here, and we are beating this dungeon because I'm sick and tired of this. All right, we're buying the knight's armor. Boom. All right. We're upgrading from iron armor to the knight's armor. We're going from 36 defense to 46 defense, as if our fighter needed to be even stronger. That's awesome. All right. So, let's check the magic shops again, quickly. This is level 5 magic, I think. All right. Oh, she's already got 3 out of 3. So we'll buy some black magic. I think the only thing we have for this guy is fireball. Yeah. We'll take teleport, I guess. I'll take Scourge just for the fun of it. Oh, he can't learn teleport yet. Oh, because only a black mage. That's, again, we thought we could learn it, but we can't. It's got to be for, Well, I'm not going to take that spell. It just doesn't seem worth it. Alrighty. Well, we're coming to the end of another little stream here. Does this place have an item shop? Did it get destroyed? Where's our item shop? I don't think this place has an item shop. It got, destroyed. I should know that it doesn't have an item shop. But yeah, look at that. There used to be an item shop and it got destroyed. Damn. That's savage. Alright, well, I guess we got to take a quick sail back to Elf Town. Actually, it's probably quicker to go back to Corneria, the starting town. And again, when I talk about re-encountering monsters that you fought before, the fact that you have to pass through the oceans, and it's at one point in the game, fighting a shark was very scary, and I still have to fight sharks, and so I actually get to feel more powerful. And yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, these fights are annoying and pointless, which is why when eventually I get the airship, and when you're on the airship, there are no random encounters. It actually feels like a real, power up, because now I don't have to bother with all this annoying bullshit. Hold on a second. I'm gonna defend. All right, let's see. Let's let loose with a Scourge and see what this does. Let's see if this does anything against these lower level monsters. All right, Black Mage, do your worst. Cloud kill, by the way. All right, not bad. Scourge is basically D&D's cloud kill. For those of you wondering. Now again, you know, was I instantly killing the cool set piece encounter that the whole adventure predicated around? No, but this is just random counters that nobody gives a shit about. So yeah. Sorry, Cornelia. They changed it in the remaster. Also, look at that. Only 30 gold to stay here. And then we'll go buy our potions. We'll level. We'll get all tapped off. And Obvious, who's again in chat. Oh, I left. One of my favorite instances. We were playing Pathfinder 1, and they had been dealing with these doppelgangers on level 2 of the dungeon or level 3 of the dungeon for a long time, and they were really annoying. And at some point, his wizard had acquired, and they weren't level 9 yet, but his wizard had acquired a scroll of Cloud Kill, and he was kind of saving it. And they were entering on the dungeon level, and they got ambushed by the doppelgangers again. And he basically went, I'm so sick of these motherfuckers. And he just pulled out the scroll. He cast Cloud Kill. It like rolled down the stairs into the chamber with all the doppelgangers who had been causing them all manner of grief. And it just killed them all. And it was awesome. And that was all she wrote for the doppelgangers. All right. Here we go. Now, I should point out that in this version of the game, they have things like high potions and ethers and phoenix downs. But I think you can see how this would basically make the game trivial. It would turn this game... I mean, potions already do a pretty good job of it. But it would turn this game into Cure Light Wounds wands. Because now, after every fight, I could just top off my hit points. And so now the only danger of a fight is if I get wiped. And I just find that to be a very unsatisfying gameplay pattern. Plus, it means that now every fight has to be balanced around the idea that it could kill me. Because if it can't kill me, it's meaningless. All right. Well, we're level 22, so we're definitely over-leveled because we should probably need to be level 18. Oh, that's a great question. Do they sell gold needles here? I didn't see if they did. Good idea. I forgot that's a valid item that we're allowed to buy. Yeah. All right, let's buy... let's buy 20. That should be fine. And while we're at it, we'll buy max antidotes too. Okay. Okay. We're good there. And again, already, you can see all that money we had, and we're down to 11,000. I mean, obviously, 11,000 is better than 0, but, the money goes quick. Good call, Lollipop. Classic D&D thing where you have the opportunity to buy levels and then you forget to do it. So, that will be that. Alrighty. And that will be all she wrote. How do I turn off this fucking controller? Do I hold the X? Maybe. All right, there it goes. It's off. All right. Yeah, you can carry around cottages. Think Fabula Ultima. Think Magic Tent, Lollipop. That's actually, I like to think of it as a single-use scroll of Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion, right? Something like that. And you kind of just use it, and it turns into a mansion. You get a really good night's sleep once, and then in the morning it kind of crumbles away. I don't actually know if that's what they intended it to be, but that's the way I envision it, for sure. Right. So, any case, so we're gonna be back tomorrow on our normal channel for our Thursday night stream. I don't know what we're going to be doing yet. We do still have a lot of first looks that we need to cover, but the channel isn't only first looks, even though those are very popular and people do enjoy them. So yeah, maybe we'll see what else we can cover. It's been a long time since we've covered anything else new, but part of the problem has been that I haven't had an opportunity to really play any new games in a while, so I'm kind of behind the curve on that respect. And as far as like gaming advice and all this other stuff, again, we've covered a lot of stuff to death. Whether it was Daggerheart or something like that. Now there's still Draw Steel classes I want to cover. Maybe we'll do Draw Steel tomorrow. We've been talking Draw Steel. Lastly, I'm going to say something here with only 40 people watching. I'm going to regret saying this, but I went and bought the full version of Wilderfeast because I wanted to take a look at it. I wanted to take a look at more, of the game. And I do think it would make for a good mega game. You know, I mega games are just so interesting to me. I just think it's such a fun way for us to play with our community, and it's such a cool way to get people ability to play games that they might not otherwise be able to play. And I think that's why they're so fun and interesting to me. And it's just a fun different way for you to play RPGs other than just standard like 5 people and things like that. Wes, yeah, if there would ever be a Draw Steel mega game, and I think there should be, I think it would have to wait until we have a fully released, fully functioning codex, 100%. Erica says yes. And it's actually for a couple of different reasons, but what it really comes down to is one of the most, in Northern Reaches Season 1, one of the most popular types of adventures were called monster hunts. We literally called them that, and they became known as Monster Hunt Extremes, because the idea was that because the party was only going to fight one monster, is PF2, you'd make it an extreme encounter so that it was tough, and that was very popular. And I find that a lot of people don't like to create, complex, advanced dungeons and, drawing all these really complex maps and all this other stuff. So I think that has some significant advantages to the way that our mega games proceed. Again, I know that we are, there's a group of people who want us to do a Lancer Reaches and have the mega game that way. And Onyx and some of the other people from the Patreon have actually written up a series of rules. I do need to review them. They sent them to me after I got back from PAX, but I was sick, so I didn't get a chance to read them yet, and I'm kind of behind, but I got to catch up and read that. And, that would be really cool. But, I mean, in that respect, it's very different. That is a very highly super ultimate uber tactical, type game for people who want that kind of really complex, crunchy mech combat. But I think with Wilderfist, we could maybe do something different, so I think that'd be kind of interesting. Because regardless of what mega games we've run, PF2, PF2, Dragonbane, and potentially Lancers, all 3 of those games still fundamentally are resolved around sort of, grid-based initiative combat. And I'm interested to see what a mega game could look like that really shifts that paradigm to something a lot more abstract and simplistic. But again, there's a couple of things that we'd have to work through, but, never say never. I'll just say the game surprised me with how much I liked it. So we'll see. In the meantime, I'm getting survey results back. We've got a Northern Reaches survey. I didn't actually create that survey, so I'm going to have to talk with the Northern Reaches GM Council to see where they're at with that. But we've got about 15 or 16 responses back from our Dragontide survey, which is pretty good considering that we only had about 30 active people. And so far, results are all over the place. Yeah, one of the things that's going to probably be rip Dragontide crafting. Yeah, probably. Unfortunately. Maybe rip a lot of things. Apparently what I think is interesting is not what other people think is interesting. I mean, part of the problem is always going to be that a not small majority of people join a mega game because they just want to play that game a lot. And they just want to play PF2. They just want to play Dragonbane. When you start creating, your mega game rules and you start creating changes to that core game, people go, no, I didn't want to play Dragontide. I didn't want to play Northern Reaches. I wanted to play Dragonbane. I wanted to play PF2. And these changes change the game. And so for some people, that is very frustrating. For other people, that's exactly why they play the game. Because it's not just core, raw PF2 or Core Raw Dragonbane, and you have this sort of immersive and expansive experience. And it's really interesting to me because I wonder if those same people play the same when they are the GM. And my general sense is that a lot of these people, when they're the GM for, say, like their home group of 4 or 5 people, they are completely fine with making some random thing up or adding some new crazy thing to the game. But they're okay with it because they're the ones who did it. The problem in mega games comes when you have a GM who has a certain expectation of what the game is. And they understand that they're playing in a community game, but then some other GM or some overlord like me introduces something to the game, and that GM maybe they don't approve of it, or it's not something they would have done. And that's not a problem until that item or that ability or that whatever character comes into one of their games. And suddenly they view it as a very like antagonistic, they're ruining my game type situation. And GMs can become very not egotistical, but GMs are used to being the ones in charge. And in a mega game, you're not the only one in charge, right? There's other GMs who have as much authority as you do. And in some cases, you have a GM council or overlords who are literally above you. And that is I think it's a very tough thing for some GMs to handle because that's just not what you're used to in GMing. You are the undisputed god or goddess of your world. So I think that's really tough. All right, Karama says, what? People don't like when the space finders blast into town? Yes, exactly. Yes, 6-shooter, Tarrasque Bone Flail, A great example of that is actual 6-shooter and Tarrasque Bone Flail were both used to brutally effective effect to fuck over my end of campaign raid, which I created, right? And they were awarded, right, by other GMs who just kind of said, fuck it, we ball. This looks cool, The difference is, I like leaning into the meme of it. I didn't really care because I don't really care. But I think a lot of GMs, especially in a game like PF2, view their role as being like, I'm here to, punish the party and challenge them and make them pay and wipe them. I'm not saying that that's exactly what they're thinking, but I think that's kind of what they're thinking. And so when a party comes in with a Tarrasque Bone Flail or something like that, they get really upset. Our crafting system was used, and it was a very elaborate thing. Let me be very clear about this. This took literally months of the campaign. The campaign only lasted 12 weeks. It literally took like 2 months of the campaign, but someone crafted a really powerful magical bow. And the magical bow was used to great effect to kind of, destroy or own a GM's monster. And they were upset about that. And of course, I wondered what was the outcome that they wanted to have happen. I guess TPK the party. I'm not quite sure what the outcome is that they wanted to have happen. But I get it. I mean, I understand where it's very frustrating in that respect. So, yeah, I don't know. What's interesting is somebody was posting stuff from Land of Eam, which I've seen all over the place, but I haven't owned it. In fact, actually, I think they offered to send me the game for free after I talked to them at Gen Con. I just never followed up on it. But they were posting, and they had this really complex crafting system with ingredients and recipes, and you mix it together. And that's exactly what we were doing in Dragontide. So I thought that was really, really interesting. But one thing that seems to be the case is that people really do hate that. So it'll probably have to go away. Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know. I'm always kind of I understand that what I desire and what I'm interested in a combat in a situation is very different than what other people are interested in a combat in a situation. So I have to remember that my opinions and my biases are very strange, which is usually why when I get involved in a mega game, people hate it. Because what Derek likes is not what anybody else likes. Am I saying that other people like really boring generic stuff? Yeah, I kind of am. But that's okay. Because the purpose of a mega game is to be as widely appealing as possible. And anything that appeals to only a very narrow group is something that I need to aggressively prune. Even if there is a group of people who really like that thing, if the mega game goes from 50 people to 10, it's not really a mega game anymore. And so, I think that there's a lot of people who like to think that, the mega game is their own personal private playground, but it's not. And I think sometimes we have been overly permissive with allowing people, carte blanche to kind of do and say and whatever they want. And we've even had problems where, something happens in the campaign and that has an effect on the rest of the campaign. So a great example was in Northern Reaches Season 2. Something happened or whatever. And as a result of that, somebody came in and there was a white dragon at the beginning of every fight, or at the beginning of every session. You had to roll in this random encounter, or a white dragon attacked you. And a lot of GMs were upset because they said, "Oh, if this white dragon attacks, it's going to derail my whole session. It's going to fuck up everything that I'm trying to do with my adventure. My players signed up for this session. They didn't sign up to fight a dragon, then a hopeless fight." And there were people that were really upset that that this event had occurred. Smith had set this event in motion, but they were upset about it. What's up, Nihilist Phoenix? Long time no see, buddy. Good evening. Just want to pop in quick, say hi, and use my Prime on a great creator. Well, I appreciate the 2 months, Nihilist Phoenix, and it's good to see you, my friend. Love to hear it. Thank you so much for the kind words. And so it's a tough, it's sort of a tough, it's a tough spot to be in, for sure. And even though we've run 6 mega games now, 7 mega games, I still don't know that we completely have a solution that can work for, we'll say 2 standard deviations of the populace. There's always going to be some group of people that are on either side of the outskirts, that are going to be upset. Absolutely, Karma. Absolutely. But again, it's like I was talking tonight about the Final Fantasy situation, right? Like, if we were playing old school Essentials and you were trying to get to the dungeon, which had the treasure, which is where you would get the experience points, you'd have to cross the overland. And you might end up having a bunch of random encounters. And you literally never even get to the dungeon during your session. And it's kind of like, that mentality is what Northern Reaches was designed around. Northern Reaches was our version of, Gygax's original campaign premise, which, became known as West Marches because of that famous blog article from Ben Robbins. But it was essentially that. And I was okay with that. I was okay with exactly what you just described. Other people were not. And I should point out that Smith was okay with that. And again, Smith and I had a very clear, basically, old school Gygaxian campaign run with PF2. That was what Northern Reaches was. Full stop. And I do think that PF2 has certain structural issues that make that difficult, which has emerged over time, which is fine. But I also think it's just quite simply that was not an experience that the vast majority of players were really engaging with. And so, our experience has been that most people in the PF2 area really like either, very role-play heavy, intrigue, more, skill checks, and, maybe there's some fights, but it's mostly about, like, interacting and role-playing and things. Or they like, the Elden Ring, big boss fight, really complicated mechanics, MMO style raid type encounter, But but that's the problem, Karama. This is what I was talking about before about giving GMs too much freedom. Like, again, this is why I'm not involved with running Northern Reaches anymore, because I would say I don't want either of those I don't want either of those type of sessions to be in my campaign. I'm the Overlord. What I say goes, right? And I could do that, and then no one would play my mega game campaign, which is why I have to step back, because that's I can't force people to GM. Like they'll just go, oh, that's the way the campaign is. Okay, I won't run games then in your mega game, and I'll go, I'll go start my own campaign or whatever. And that's exactly why I'm not really involved anymore. Because I what I want out of a mega game is not what the people who are playing the mega game want out of the mega game. People want the ability to say, hey, my session is about X, Y, and Z, and that's what my session's about. I don't want external factors to change what my session is about. Whereas my philosophy is that's exactly what a mega game should be. So again, there's a sort of a juxtaposed distinction there. But from that perspective, I dislike the role playing heavy. We just are talking in the Jagged Pine Forest type encounters that were became more prevalent in season 2 and stuff like that. But I don't like what the arena type fights either. I didn't like Monster Hunt Extremes back in season 1. Which I don't think you played in season 1, Karama. But I mean, at that time, I didn't like Monster Hunt Extremes either. So, but we had a lot of GMs who basically said, well, I want to run a session. And it's like, okay, well, what do you like about Pathfinder 2? And they're like, the fighting. And they're like, and I don't have any time to make, a dungeon or an adventure or anything like that. So I'm just going to have a big monster in the woods. And since that's the only thing the parties are going to fight, it's going to be an extreme. And eventually it became like an extreme plus plus. And right, that was the Monster Hunt Extreme plus plus. And so, it was, and I just, Smith and I were kind of like, well, that's what people want, and so we felt like we had lost control. We were shouting at class, and again, we could have come down with an iron fist. And to be clear, Smith kind of did that in season 2, with the GM leveling up factor, and you had to earn the right to put things into your game, and that was very unpopular. So and so with each season, I've sort of stepped back more and more and more and more, and for the most part, we have had less and less and less and less drama with each season, because we don't have these things that are very, very, very opinionated and very antagonistic in that respect. Correct. It's evolving into its own thing. In fact, I don't know where I said it. I think I said it in Reaches on the Discord, but I basically said something along the lines of, I might have been talking with Karama. I was talking about like what I intended Northern Reaches to be, and I basically said it outgrew its creator. And at a certain point, I feel like I'm only hindering it, not helping it, because I have my biases and I have my desires, and that's what I know and that's what I want to do. And so again, I'm not very good at not having an opinion. So it worked out well that we had such extremely involved and extremely caring people who are like, hey, we'll run this game for you because we think you do a shit job. We think you do a shitty job of doing it. And I was like, okay, well that's fair. Yeah, so that's where we're at. I don't know. But anyways, tomorrow we'll be back on the main channel. Probably we might do some more Draw Steel classes. I think it'd be fun to talk about Draw Steel. I don't want to do another first look, so maybe we'll do another deep dive. And I think we looked at a couple classes, but I think we need to look at a couple ones. So, Casey, it happens to the best of us. It happens to the best of us. I am very blessed that I can do this YouTube thing. But before, the last couple of years since COVID, I was working from home, and now I got laid off from that job, and now this is my only job. But I will say, I don't think I could ever go back into the office again. I don't know how people do it. I don't know how people could do it. the commute, sitting in the office, the cubicle, I almost get physically ill imagining having to be in the office. And you're absolutely right. For decades, for like 15, 16 years, every 5 days a week, like clockwork. In fact, in the beginning part of my career, I used to go in on Saturdays too. So, Monday through Saturday, it was so crazy. But no, you're not a problem, Karma. You're just, you're very opinionated, and you like to stir the pot, and you like to point out problems as you see them. I'm definitely allergic to that office life for sure. All right, folks. Well, I'm going to dip out. Thank you for joining me for Chapter 3, The Rotting Earth. Next time when we play, we're going to go kick the Lit Earth Fiend's ass, and then we have some really important decisions to make, like, are we going to go to the ice cave first? Are we going to go to the fire cave? Are we going to go try to do a quick class change, level up? We'll probably have some polls. We'll let the chat help decide and shape where we're going to go in the video game. And then, eventually here, the next, I don't know, 15-ish, maybe like 10-ish hours, we'll probably beat this game. And then the question is, what other game do we want Derek to spend entirely too long playing? We could keep playing Final Fantasies, or maybe we could go play, I don't know. There's a handful of older video games. Oh, like we could play old CRPGs, but that would take a long time. But like Eye of the Beholder, Eye of the Beholder 2, Eye of the Beholder 3. Somebody said that they just released a completely patched and fixed Temple of Elemental Evil, which was a 3rd edition module. Well, Return to Temple of Elemental Evil. But Temple of Elemental Evil was released back in like 2002, and it was really buggy, and it was really terrible. And I remember trying to play it, and it was really bad. But I guess apparently somebody fixed it and re-released it recently, and that's 3rd edition. That would be a lot of fun, because like I love Icewind Dale and I love old Baldur's Gate, but that's 2nd edition AT&D. But Temple of Elemental Evil. Let me take a look at this real quick before I dip out. Somebody said that they just released it. Apparently it's on Steam now. Is this like new? Release date December 10th, 2025. Yeah, so I guess they just released it onto Steam. Because before it was on, it was just on Good Old Games or whatever like that. Here we go. Temple of Elemental Evil, first released in 2003, so I was not, has inspired a passionate community for 2 decades. This updated edition is a true labor of love, shaped by years of fan dedication and the incredible efforts of the Circle of 8, sweet, and Temple Plus modding communities. It brings the classic D&D adventure life for modern players with over 1,000 fixes and improvement, from enhanced stability, which is a real problem, and better AI, which is a real problem, to smoother, more refined UI and countless quality of life updates. We may have just found what we're going to be doing here. Fantastic. All right, that might have to be it. We'll see what happens. We'll check it out and see what we're doing. I'm pretty sure again that it uses it's 3rd edition. I don't know if it's 3.5 or 3E, but then again, apparently they made some updates and quality of life fixes. I myself would be very excited to play that. So maybe that'll be our next game. All right, folks. Thank you so much for joining me. And of course, as always, good night, game night. We'll see you next time on Knights of Last Call. Peace out.